Hello everyone, this is Meryl, and this is another story that has been sent in to us that I will be narrating. This happened in the summer of 2015. This story began while I was on holiday at the beach. I was enjoying the long hot summer days and humid nights. My friend Kate came to stay with my parents and I that first week. Every night Kate and I would take a walk along the beach at dusk. We would just enjoy walking, strolling around, making plans for the next day. Then came the night that would forever change everything in what I believed. As usual, we were walking along the beach when in front of me there appeared a haze-like fog, but a lot thinner, if that makes sense. Then I saw a black Labrador dog walking along wagging his tail. I said to my friend, "That dog is so beautiful, isn't he?" She looked at me with such a surprise on her face and said, "What dog?" I was just as surprised at her comment. I said, "The Labrador, just there in front of us." She said, "I see no dog." To say I was shocked is an understatement. The next thing I saw was a man in a cream-coloured coat walking beside the dog. I stopped again and said to my friend, "Do you see that man with the dog?" My friend said to me, "You must be losing it. I don't see anything. I don't see a dog, and I definitely don't see a man." I didn't know what to say. It was so real to me. I couldn't understand why she couldn't see it as well. We continued on home, and after discussing the situation, I decided that I would tell my mother about this strange occurrence. After being greeted by my mother and asking if we had enjoyed our walk, I decided I had to tell her in detail what had just happened. My mother looked at me in total surprise when I had finished telling her what occurred, and just said in a very matter-of-fact manner, "Okay, that was your grandfather." I stared in shock as my mother continued to say that my grandfather used to walk along the rivers at night with his dogs to get some exercise, as it was much too hot to do this in the earlier part of the day. The way my mother described it was exactly how I saw it on the beach. I described the man walking his dogs on the beach to my mother in detail, and yes, that was him. You see, I never knew him as I was only 2 years old when he passed away. This turned out to be a bittersweet experience. It was hard for my mother to hear it, but also she was very, very pleased that I had the experience of seeing my grandfather, although it was hard for me too, as I felt very sad that I didn't remember him. It did change how I now look at things though. I believe these apparitions or sightings of loved ones really do happen to some of us. I think my grandfather wanted me to remember him, and that was his way of doing it. I'll never forget that experience, and I will never forget seeing my grandfather walking his beloved dogs. Thank you for listening to my story.
Hi, this is April at The Gathering. The following story has been submitted to us by a subscriber, and at their request, I will be narrating it on their behalf. Most of my life, I would consider myself a skeptic when it came to ghosts and things that would go bump in the night. However, one experience for me changed my views on what I now believe. About 10 years ago, a close friend of mine was traveling out of town for the weekend and had asked if I wouldn't mind staying the weekend to keep an eye on her house and her dog. I had no plans, so I willingly told her, of course, no problem. I had extra work to do on my laptop anyhow, so this would be just fine for me. I remember arriving Friday night at her house. The home was little but cozy, and Riley, her dog, was there to greet me as I entered the door. It was middle of summer, and still some sunlight was peeking through the windows and through the curtains. Once the sun had set, I decided to travel out with Riley for a quick walk and then headed straight to bed, as I had had a long day, and that night it was uneventful. Things, however, changed quickly the following Saturday afternoon, evening. I took the dog out for his walk that afternoon, and when we returned, I settled down on the living room sofa. As I sat checking my emails on my laptop, I slowly seen the door I had just come in through and lock open slowly. At first, I thought, wait, did I forget to lock it? No, I know I did, because the door makes a loud click when it locks. Plus, I pulled on it to make sure it was locked, being that it's not my house. I wanted to be extra cautious. I quickly jumped up and slammed the door shut and locked it again. The odd thing I noticed is that Riley, her dog, was cowering behind the couch as if he saw someone or something and was really frightened. I said to myself, that's it. I'm just going upstairs into the guest room. So the dog and I moved upstairs into the guest room, and at this point, I felt quite uneasy, and I could tell Riley did as well. A few hours passed, and decided to take the dog out for his evening walk and turn in for the night. I wanted to get through this night and was anxious to leave the house in the morning. As I came down the stairs, I stopped in my tracks about halfway. I couldn't believe my eyes. The door was open again. What I didn't mention earlier is that earlier before I headed up to the guest room with the dog, being my usual paranoid self, I wedged a wooden chair under the doorknob. Silly, I know, but I thought I would hear it if someone or something had tried to get in or open the door again. The chair had made no noise of any kind and was moved back to its original spot at the kitchen table where I had originally moved it from. At this point, I grabbed my belongings, which wasn't much, and the dog, and I left. Locked the door again for the last time and left. I went back to my apartment and snuck Riley in till morning. I will never be able to explain what had happened, but I do know that that night something not human was in that home. The feeling of fear that I had, I can't explain. I ended up calling my friend and telling her, obviously, what happened that following morning. She says she believed me, but was surprised because she's been there several years and nothing like that had ever happened to her. And she's never felt any type of negativity or anything that would scare her in her home. After that weekend, my beliefs have been changed, and I now stay clear of ever any house sitting offers. We'd like to thank this subscriber for their story today. And on everyone else's behalf, thank you again.